We'll see if it works this time. Every now and then it doesn't work as intended. Hello, am I live? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Is this thing on? Is anybody there? I think I'm live. Are we there yet? Oh, I can hear myself. Why can I hear myself? Well, that's no bueno. I don't want a mic picking up a double echo the whole time, but all right, let's do it. Let's do a mic test. You ready? The shadows are dark in the dungeon. The shadows are dark in the forest. The shadows are dark. So take heart, heart and embark. I haven't played this in a while. But the road is darker yet ahead. The journey is long and untrodden. The path is all but forgotten. So take heart, face your quest. For your medal they'll test. And a hero you'll be at journey's end. A hero you'll be at journey's end. Alright, it seems like people can hear me. So, we'll go with that. What's up, folks? How we doing? What's going on this wonderful Friday, second day of 2026? Glad to have you all here today. We're going to do something a little different today. I'm going to do a giveaway. Probably midstream, if I remember to do it midstream. But today we're going to give away this book here. Just need to be signed up for the mailing list to be entered, and I'll double check to make sure that there's no one new as of like the last 5 minutes. But I think we pretty much got all the names. Yep. Alexander Pontes was the last subscriber. So I'll put on some background music. Or is it already gone? I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, gonna give this one away today, and probably gonna do this one next month. So if you don't win today, don't leave the mailing list just because you didn't get this book, because you might win this book. So do that one in February. But hopefully everyone's doing all right. You're super quiet for me. Oh no. There's background music, yes. How's that? Is that better? Being called. I don't want to be called right now. It's probably telemarketers. Okay. If I lean into the mic, maybe that's a little better. Yes? Okay, anyway. So yeah. Little mini announcement at the top of this. I might be getting a new job. Asterix. The schedule of the live streams could change if so. Well, here, if I'm super quiet, yeah, I don't think that's going to do much. Let's just turn up my mic. How about now? Because if I do it too high, you get all my inhales, all the stuff that nobody wants to hear. But hopefully I have the right mic on. And I can turn off the music if it's distracting. But anyways, I was going to say, I might be getting a new job, which means I'll have to move the schedules of these live streams. So they may end up being like 8 p.m. Eastern time on a Thursday evening or something weird. But I'll make a little post. So I'll let you guys know if that happens. Thank you guys for being here. Hopefully you can hear me. Maybe it I almost said auto-tuned. Auto-quieted me because I was playing guitar, but if so, maybe I'll have to figure that out outside of stream. Alright, so, yeah, giveaway midstream, stick around, but today we're going to talk about a little bit of TTRPG prep. If you guys have been following along with the Let's Plays, let's see if I move this down, is it in the screen? If you've been following along with the Let's Plays, you know what this is. This is a little adventure that we sort of wrote together. I've named it Psalm of the Sleeper for now. Title pending. This was a ShadowDark adventure, and I kind of like came up with the map ahead of time, just doodling one day. And then I thought it'd be a fun exercise to kind of show people my process of how, like, I write a dungeon, basically, and, like, you know, generate ideas and stuff. But it was a little different, to be honest, because I involved chat, and people were, like, throwing ideas at me, which doesn't usually happen in isolation. So it was a bit different than the way I normally do things. But we ended up with, like, pages and pages of notes about this place. Like, we started off with the Room of the Compass Rose, and some of it I just jotted down ideas, and other parts we rolled on tables in, like, Knave 2nd edition, and I think I broke out Pirate Board for a bit of it. Maybe even some ShadowDark roll tables. But we came up with these ideas, and I sort of had to distill them down, because I don't actually use usually this much information when I run things at the table. I prefer to be able to just glance down at my sheet, get a quick idea of what I need to know to keep the game moving along smoothly, and yeah, not get bogged down by, like, just sitting there looking down at my notes and reading the whole time. Because I personally, I have sort of a philosophy that, like, as a game master, if you spend most of the time kind of looking down at your sheet instead of up at your players and engage with what's going on, then you start to sort of lose people after a while. I mean, you know, it's fine to do every now and then, but I like to keep the excitement, the momentum going forward, and yeah, so I just try to distill things down to something a little less chaotic than all this. Alright, so when it's all said and done, here, let's pull up the first page. The Room of the Compass Rose. And again, let me know if that music gets annoying. I can turn it off. Yeah, I too try to stay present in the session and responsive rather than reading box text. Yeah, exactly. You wanna make sure you're, like, listening to what your players are saying and engage with the ideas that they're having, and also, you know, like, reading their faces to see if they're kind of getting bored and it's time to kick into action and, you know, send in some orcs attack. You know, that old Matt Colville video. Okay, so get this thing out of here. We have the Compass Rose, and just to kind of show you guys what I ended up with versus what I started with, I kind of wanted to go through a couple of different rooms and show you what I, like, pulled away with. I did have this little acronym I was using, but I don't know if I stuck with it through the whole thing, but it was like Lord or something. Loot, obstacles. No, not loot. Oh shoot, I already messed it up. If Twin Steel is in here, he probably remembers it. Something obstacles, reward, and I should write it down before the stream. Anyways, not super important. But yeah, here we have Riddle of the Elements. That pretty much stayed exactly the same here. We have our loot. I can kind of condensed it as much as I could, because some of this stuff I felt was, like, kind of generic stuff, or really only matters to my style of game, and isn't, like, really ShadowDark rules. Like, I do a different inventory thing with bags, bandoliers, belt pouches, and stuff than is actually in the book. Basically, it's the same rule that I use for 7 Delving Sins, which is they don't count against your inventory and they add 1 slot. So, and you can only wear certain ones in certain places, basically. 2d10 mushrooms on skeletons. Mnemonic devices, yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's unfortunately true, but to be fair, I changed it halfway through the stream. It was something else, but Lord was, like, a way better one. I can't remember what it was now, because yeah. Anyways, all right, let's go. Let's keep this moving. This might be a short one today, so I can get in the giveaway, and then get to work on my game. Chapel of Chimes. We wrote that it was in the east. An ever-present wind flows through, causing a haunting melody through the chimes from the southeast. We have a hooded lantern on the altar. strange trinkets, a lodestone, pile of coins, and then we have this plinth that was important and has played a role several places throughout the dungeon. There are these different plinth locations that affect, basically they're these like weapons, we wrote them down here, or magic items rather, and they're sort of the keys in a Zelda style for the entire dungeon. And so I wrote kind of a general idea of what these things did ahead of time, but I was kind of making this up on the spot during that stream. In fact, you can go back and watch it if you want, and you can kind of see how things molded and changed once the idea of the dungeon really solidified. I moved some pieces around to really make more sense and help the dungeon flow a little better. So I didn't end up using everything here, I don't believe. And in fact, if you look at Chapel of Chimes, I crossed this out recently. I was like, you know what? I don't really like this glass wall. I like it just being an open exit from this section down into here if someone wants to like basically scale the cliff with whatever, like a rope or something like that. So ended up making some minor changes even as I started to play it, because I've actually played this section with my players. They've gone through a bit. Chelsea, could I get you to grab something? Would you grab the egg light for me?
Right now?
Yeah, I just realized the lighting is kind of harsh right here on this page. Let's see. Yeah, so I condensed the pulley I wrote was to the north, and basically I start off my rooms usually with like what's happening in the cardinal directions. Thanks. Need a little bit extra light so that this is easier to read. There we go. That's better. Okay, yeah, we got our pulley to the north. I'm going to pull out the map here to show you which room we're talking about. I actually ended up drawing a church on the actual map. I didn't do it on this mini map. Pulley to the north, a chasm opening to the east with the flaming sword out here. Then haunting melody from the southeast wind, so kind of coming down from this direction here and up over the chasm into the church. I just wrote, oh yeah, hitting chimes, and I kind of this is the sort of stuff that, like, I don't know how you guys are, but when I'm in the moment running an adventure, I get sort of evocative with the descriptions and things, and I don't tend to like write all that stuff down, because I feel like one of my strengths as a game master is kind of like coming up with those details in the moment. I can imagine the scene in my head sort of playing out, and I describe it as I sort of mentally picture it. And so I just need a reminder that the wind is hitting the chimes, and then I'll describe it as like this haunting melody that seems to be cast upon the wind. Stuff like that. I changed the hooded lantern and stuff. I think I just wrote all the loot in one spot. I don't think I necessarily said that it was on the altar here, but yeah, let's see. Vial lodestone lantern, generic stuff. This is a starter adventure, and I kind of took away a lot of their loot at the beginning, so I wanted to make sure that they had some odds and ends to play around with, some toys to tinker with if they wanted. And then I wrote the stuff with the plinth. I kept as simple as humanly possible. If they place the wind item, it changes the music. Ice stops the music. Fire wakes these bats that are hanging in the rafters. I don't even think I wrote that. Yeah, I did actually. Bats frozen in the rafters. And then I put, this is Monster Overhaul, page 209. I put a little marker for myself in case I wanted to remember which stat blocks I was using for those bats. For the earth, vines grow, and I just kept it really vague because the idea was if they wanted to have some control over how those vines grew, I was totally happy with them coming up with ideas of how to weave the magic and create like a vine bridge or something like that got them all the way out here. But I like to create problems and not solutions. So a lot of times I'll keep those ideas really, really simplified, basically. Let's see. And that's really it. That's the whole chapel of the chimes that we had. Like, obviously I was just writing on a big sheet of paper here. And the other thing is I write in like an A5 size journal, so it forces me to sort of truncate everything and write it in a more punchy way, which is something that I enjoy. I like the sort of mental process of taking something like this and distilling it down to the core elements that I need. But, your mileage may vary with that kind of stuff. Some people love to have a ton of notes when they run a game. It does not help me. I think conceptualizing it and writing it out or transferring it, that helps me sort of like lodge it into my brain more concretely. And then later in the moment, all I need is the quick words to kind of get me halfway there and then go, oh, yeah. Wind changes the music. Maybe it even, wakes the dragon that we, created down in this part, if you guys were there for that one. But yeah, it's, like I said, your mileage may vary. You may be the kind of game master that really needs a huge folder, but what I found in practice is it actually just slows me down. I don't end up taking a ton of time to reread all that stuff. Maybe if I have the time before I run the session, like, if I get... I play right now, our club meets at an art gallery. And if I get time to set up beforehand, like after work and all that, and after commuting, then I will kind of go over my notes quickly. But I try to find the highlights even then. I wouldn't, want to be reading 2, 3, 4 paragraphs per room. So if I'm able to just go, yep, Chasm, Flaming Sword, Haunting Melody, couple of items, and the plinth that does stuff depending on the weapon, that helps me get 90% of the way there. I'll have to do another one of these live streams where I do like a more involved prep method, but this is kind of my base that I usually fall back on if I don't have like, I'm not running a pre-written adventure, that sort of thing. I feel like I should ask questions. Do you guys have any questions for me? Is there anything that's popping up that I'm not talking about? Let me know. I'll keep an eye on the chat if I can. Yeah, brevity leaves room for imagination. Exactly. Yeah, I have a similar philosophy. Okay, let's look at 2 more examples because I have the Moonlit Tomb here, which ended up being my most involved room of everything, and that is this room right here. So let's find my notes I did during the stream. Let's see how I distilled those. This is the northmost room. I even kept that sort of concept here, but then, let's see. I wrote Portcullis to the east, Frozen Stairs south, Frozen Iron Door west, Guardian Stones, and Moon Phase Door north. Pillars featuring phases of moon, alcoves with sarcophagus, moonlight high above, and then I go into my bullet points. Points from notes are the way to go. I have a specific form created for fleshing out my dungeon rooms that is very simple. Less is more. Yeah, and this comes from the experience of doing it the hard way, right? Like, the first couple of years that I ever game mastered, and I was running 5th edition, I would take just Google Docs full of pages of notes, and I would use such a small fraction of the things that I wrote down. In fact, based on the players' decisions and things like that, there was so much that I sort of threw out. Now, a lot of that was like, I wouldn't have described it this way at the time, but like point-based or like scene-based adventures. I didn't do a lot of dungeon crawling back then. So I would just say, like, these people are all in the tavern. These are the secrets they have. These are the things going on. This is what this guy will say, even down to those sorts of details, which just ultimately I found was rarely ever useful. I did eventually read the Lazy DM by Sly Flourish, and that was a huge boon for me. It helped me realize, like, you can move those pieces around. You can just write a few bullet points, and a lot of that is kind of like adapted to like a dungeon crawl style here. In fact, I started to realize, like, there are key things that you need to establish in every room, sort of like, what's in there, what the players are going to interact with, if there are any special items, if there are any obstacles, whether that's traps, puzzles, or creatures and monsters and things like that. For me, it stems from high school, as I sucked at creating study notes, so I did everything in point form, focusing on the main points, giving them more details. Yeah, that's an excellent way to think about it too. Like, everyone has a different learning style, right? Whether it's auditory, visual, whether you're the kind of person that really does benefit from taking notes. And in fact, I think for me, a lot of it is like the act of writing it down solidifies it in my brain. I end up not even really totally needing these most of the time. Every now and then I will look back and I will go, there's one detail I'm missing here, and it's what did the fire weapon do on this plinth? And wake the bats. And where are those bats? Okay, let's go find those. That sort of thing. The finer details, but not to get too lost here. Let's go back to our moonlit tomb. Okay, so we had all of this info, and then also, if you can't tell, my ADHD brain, I do have to have some notes to keep me grounded, or else I'll go off the rails. I changed the Guardian Stone, I think, to be the double doors to the north, flanked by stone golems missing key items. And this is where that sort of Zelda idea came in, where, like, you need the crown, the sword, the staff, and the shield. And I had it that they were just missing those items, so that the only way the players are really going to get to this final room is if they find all 4 of the magic items, and then they get to fight the Lunalith, the monster that we came up with. And I put portcullis to the east, that stayed. Frozen stair to the south. Door crown relief. So this was another way that I sort of like pieced in those magic items to be more beneficial. And in fact, in actual play, I even threw out the portcullis because I wanted one more use of those magic items. I felt like they weren't heavily used enough for the amount of emphasis I put on them through the rest of the dungeon. So I took out the portcullis. I just made this one more door with a relief in it. And in fact, I think it has the fire sword relief, so that if they went this way first, got the fire sword, came up here, they could use it on this door as like a second entry point. So even though it says it in my notes, what happens in actual play is always what's written either. Here we are. Frozen stair, door relief, tombed alcoves, which were these things. Moonlight spills over a death rune array. And this became sort of the puzzle that we created on, here it is. Corpse placed on death runes equals 1 speak with dead. So essentially, I boiled down all of this that we came up with, because we talked about a few different things on that stream. Where is it? Pillars featuring moon. Yeah, moon mosaic sprinkled with moonlight, placing corpse on it speaks with dead. Because I think we came up with a few different ideas, and ultimately I thought in practice they're not going to be very interesting to interact with. So it would almost be more interesting if there were like ghostly whispers happening throughout the room, things like that. And so when I ran it, that's kind of what I was trying to convey, is that every time they opened one of these tombs and they found a body, they heard these ghostly whispers coming from the center of the room. And that was trying to clue them in on, like, there's a puzzle here. I don't think they ever actually fully latched onto it, to be honest. I may need to, like, give a second hint if they pass back through this room at some point. But they got more interested in everything that was happening in the south, so they kind of left this lull think like, oh, this is something we'll return to later. We don't have all the pieces, and they quickly moved on. Let's see. What else do we have here? I wrote down that there are 4 tombs. I shortened it. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, they're just going to keep pulling body after body out of these things. And I'm going to have to come up with a lot of information that these corpses have that's going to be important to them. So I ended up just making it 4. That way I really only have to answer 4 questions. And that was just a thing I saw whenever I was prepping it and rewriting. I thought, that's going to be potentially problematic, just because it's just more secrets and clues I have to come up with either on the spot or link to the other things they've interacted with so far in the dungeon. So ended up shortening that. Hybrid descendants of Lunalith, half crustacean humanoid bodies preserved in mire. And then I have our loot here, a crab moth amulet. And I wrote down Amulet of Elder Dream. This was kind of the, we said it, I don't know where we wrote it. It might have been up here in the margins. Because this is the other thing. I got so scatterbrained during the live stream. Sometimes I like take all y'all's ideas and I'm like, I have to jot them down somewhere so that I remember them later. But yeah, Amulet of Elder Dream, I think we just kind of envisioned as this sort of psychic resistance. So essentially, if they wore it near the Lunalith, it couldn't do its like psychic power or attack on them. But only one player is actually going to get to use that. And then just, some more kind of mundane stuff other than like an adamantine sword with a crystalline moth pommel was one of the interesting ones. Active. Oops, yeah, act. If writing it down, absolutely agree. Question. How brutal do you like your traps and hazards to be? This is a great question. I would say if they have no warning whatsoever, and I try to really telegraph danger. That's a big thing with like OSR style games. I try to be pretty forward information wise, like letting them know, like, you hear a mechanism whirl, whatever it is that like tells them there's a trap in the room. And depending on how much information I give is basically how brutal the traps are. Like, I will straight up tell someone, if they were mucking around over here on this pulley system over like basically a bed of lava. I described it as having one of those crucibles that dips down into the lava. And I straight up told them, I said, you would know if you fail this, if you fail to cross this thing safely and you plummet into the lava, that's it. You're dead. You guys are level 1 adventurers in ShadowDark. You are dead if you fall in this lava. And I told them point blank, like, I'm happy to let you guys, come up with a plan, come up with a way that makes that either that check easier to pass, or makes the, in my head I'm thinking like, use your rope, tie yourself to the pulley on the top so that you don't, even if you fail the check, you don't fall in the lava, stuff like that. I didn't say that, but I'm like, if you can come up with a way to safely cross, you might not even need a check. But that's kind of how I try to do traps. I basically I give them enough information to make the decision that they want to make, and that way it's not like a feel bad moment. I rarely do like, you trip the wire, here comes a crossbow at you, without like some sort of, lead up telegraphing of that kind of danger, just because I don't find that very interesting to interact with. I know that some old school players really like that kind of stuff, but I want to at least hear that there are like holes in the walls and there's a corpse on the floor in the middle of this room, giving me this like Indiana Jones signaling that poison darts are going to come out of the wall or something. That's my personal philosophy. And also I picked that up from Into the Odd. I think a lot of people yeah, exactly. Open the door, rocks fall, you're dead. This is not fun. It's anticlimactic. It's I don't do gotcha moments if I can help it. I try to give at least breadcrumbs to say like, hey, something got killed in this room, or like, there's some kind of trigger here. Any kind of details I can possibly give to make it less of those gotcha moments. Hey, what's up, Twin Steel? Do you remember the Lord acronym that we came up with? I was trying to remember it and I was failing. It was like location, obstacle, reward, detail. There it is. Location, obstacle, reward, detail. So location, describe all the things that are in this room or area, obstacles, if there are monsters, traps, blah, 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 what the rewards or the loot are, and they can be non-loot based rewards like information or like allies and stuff. And then D is like small details, because sometimes one thing I haven't done a lot throughout this is give the small details. I usually just, as a sort of rule of thumb, I go really wide with my world building and really small with the details of like an area or room, items, stuff like that, and sort of like a Dark Souls, Elden Ring kind of way. Yep. Okay, location, obstacle, reward, detail. That was it. Sweet. All right. Anyway, that's the Moonlit Tomb. Detail is a good set. It's interesting to see what folks conceptualize for those sorts of notes. Yeah, and it can be different, like area to area. Like we've done this island crawling bit. So I've been coming up with these different islands, and I've tried to keep those pretty truncated as well. In fact, like we did this one, I think, before I even came up with any of that acronym, or like I think we did all of this one on the live stream. Like I wrote it out and went ahead and tried to like, do it as minimally as possible right then. So maybe that's not a good example, but I'll have to find my notes for either Jotunstein that we did together or the Black Harbor. Because I think those would be really good examples to kind of go back over the notes and see like what I ultimately ended up walking away with. How I basically abbreviated that long list of notes into something more usable at the table. Unless it's obvious, then I tell them straight up. Yeah, I'm assuming that's Swords and Stones. That's in regards to traps. Yeah, it's just, again, it's not fun. I've played with those adversarial style DMs that just, I guess, want to kill a bunch of characters, and I joke about it, just for fun. I'm like, who am I? How many characters will I kill tonight? But I want my players to have fun. I want them to feel, what's the magic word? The agency of those decisions, right? To have made the decision to cross that bridge, knowing it was a rickety rope bridge with rotting ropes. I don't want to just tell them that halfway through walking across the bridge, basically. It's just a totally different feel. Because personally, reward almost never factors into it. Your reward is a lack of punishment, different ideologies, and all that. Location, obstacle, reward. I don't know if I'm mixing up what you said there, Peter. Reward. Okay, not detail. The reward was the one that you were like, yeah. In Simpsons reference, in American game shows, you reward intelligence. Here, we punish ignorance. Okay, do you mean that like from the trap example or the reward example? For like the acronym, because I think I'm getting lost in your analogy there. But yeah, I try to think of rewards broadly in general. Like you might clear an entire dungeon and you get rewarded with the knowledge of where that MacGuffin is that you need to stop the big bad. Now that reward might not just be a pile of gold. It could be access to NPC allies. It could be hirelings. It could be a boon. It could be a number of things. So I kept reward instead of loot. Because originally I think the acronym I used had loot. And not everything needs to be loot to be a reward, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm getting way off trail here. But I think we're halfway through the stream. So I'm going to shift gears for a minute, and we're going to do our giveaway. So if you've been keeping up, you know that I've been trying to do a giveaway with every live stream. A lot of those have been dice, but at least once a month, I want to do a bigger giveaway. So I'm going to do... All right, let's see if I get this right. That's not what I want. That's my music. Okay, can you guys see a wheel? Let's see. This is the 157 people who are currently subscribed to the newsletter. And one of you today is going to get sent this book, Draw Steel Heroes. I have too many role-playing games on my shelf, and this one's big. And I don't think I'm going to play it anytime soon, to be honest. So, and I have the PDFs, so I'm going to end up giving this one away to somebody. And we're going to click the wheel right now, and we'll figure out who that is. So here we go. I should have said before, Rinsbuzzy, whoever that is, congratulations. You get a Draw Steel book. We have a winner. I will email you, because I have your email, because it's an email list. Duh. I will email you about that, and we'll get in touch. So if you're watching this, congrats. If you watch it later, it's real. This is a real email from me. I had someone not believe that it was really me, so I told them, just go to my channel and watch the video if you don't believe me. Anyways, congrats. That part is done for now. Let's switch back. All right. And if you didn't win, like I said, don't immediately unsubscribe from the mail list. I'll do this one next month, the monster one. And then I'm going to do like some smaller dice giveaways in between. Even if I have to move around my schedule and all that, I'll try to make it work. Sorry, I've missed a few messages. Fun stuffs, gang. Got to do some errands. Thanks for making 2025 totally fun for me. Hey, thanks for watching Swords and Stones. Appreciate you. You're always here on the live streams. You're always commenting. Appreciate your support, man. Your input for my lack of gaming knowledge has been priceless. Cheers. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, it slid just by my name. I know. I saw that. Yeah, I was like, watch, Peter's gonna win it, and everybody's gonna think it's rigged. BOC. All right. I know that guy. I'll tell him the email is legit. Sweet. And I should add this. Here, let's see how you guys feel about this. I would feel bad if I did like 4 giveaways a month and like Twin Steel won all the giveaways. So I think I'll kind of like, if you win within the same month, like January, then I'll take your hat out for the next giveaway, just to make it fair to others. You can only win 1 prize per month. So if that feels fair, let me know. If not, I will take some commentary on that. You might even know this person without realizing it. I probably do. I didn't, I don't want to dox you, but I've definitely rolled a few people's names, and then I sent them the email, and then I was like, is that them? Nice stab sticker you got there. Oh, is that this? That's the that's from Nimble, right? Yeah, thank you. So awesome, because this probably means I get to play it. Thanks for doing this. Yeah, absolutely. I hope you guys enjoy the things that I send you. I hope that they go to people that will actually play the games or use the dice or whatever. But yeah, I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do one more of these as example here. And really, I just hope that this is a helpful exercise for some folks out there. I know a lot of you guys are pretty seasoned game masters. But, when I started this channel, I wanted to do things that I thought would really be helpful to the community. And I don't see a lot of people, like, actively showing their prep process. So, not only have we designed things together on live stream, but I want to show examples that people can look at, can watch and go. And hopefully, like, a light clicks in for them and they go, oh, you know what? I've been doing this the hard way. There's a much easier way to do this. Maybe it won't be my way, but maybe it'll make you realize something that you were doing that you could do differently. I don't know. I was doing a lot of extra prep before I found Sly Flourish. So that guy is in my opinion, a pillar of this community. and helped me see that there are easier ways to do this stuff. So I would like to, pass on my own style and knowledge, hoping that it helps someone else. So that's why I decided to start doing these live streams. You know what? I don't think I have this with me. I wanted to do an island one, but I guess I'll have to save the island ones for next time, because this is more of like a POI, an island crawl POI, and this is like a dungeon crawl. But I'll go back into these. Hey, what's up, Technobabble? What's going on? A new elder on the Discord, the Elder Goblin Games Discord. All right, let's do one more room, I think, and then I'll just share some stuff afterwards, and we'll wrap up. Let's do the forge, because that's a big area on the map. So I had this whole southern area. I ended up splitting. Oh, excuse me. This is the forge. This ended up being the, what did I call it? This is Hinge. No, that's Hingeholt. I changed the names. The Slag Spire and the Slag Spire and the Causeway of Stone here. Actually, let's do the Causeway, because my players just did this the other night, and it's fresh in my mind. So, okay. The Causeway of Stone is also one that I really, really truncated. You can see all this is that one area. Massive hexagonal pillars stretch beyond sight. To the south, fire burns around a stone tower. A yawning chasm splits the earth. Burning steps ascend. Lightning crackles over high craters. I just had all this stuff kind of like thrown in there, and then I had sting bats, loot, a stone tower with a pyromancer, the plinth for the area, and I ended up really, really narrowing that down, and I think I actually ended up splitting these into two separate areas because there was so much. Oh no, I guess I didn't. Let's see. No, I kept it all one. I think I just moved the information around. So I wrote, north we have the hexagonal pillars, to the east we have a yawning chasm, to the south fires and a stone tower, and to the west lightning and craters. So that was, again, this whole section basically is right here. And then let's see, the sting bats near the chasm attack noisy, that's kind of hard to read, isn't it? Noisy travelers and cocoon their bodies. So all over these sort of like, I described it as almost like a forest of stone where these pillars rise up, and I said some of them have like these cocoons, these like growths on the sides of them, and they got real creeped out by that. And then I have Solomon the Pyromancer. He's friendly while his pyres yet burn. He wants to offer Flamebrand, which is our sword, to Mazgath, which is the god of chaos in this setting. And I just left it at that. He was super nice to them. In fact, one of the players really glommed on to that character, and I did a fun little voice, and they all really liked him. But then we had a new player who is still kind of in murder hobo mode because he's brand new to role-playing games, and he ended up, they were leading him over here to show him this cool church where they left the sword in the plinth, and the new player fought him on the bridge, almost died, but then they cut the bridge with the pyromancer on it, and I was like, yeah, that's it, you guys, you kill him. Like this is like almost like a bottomless pit under this rope bridge. So they ruined any more story that was going to come out of that guy. But I had like some notes I left over in his tower over here, so it all worked out. And then I wrote what the plinth does in this section. Earth splits the layer further, causing chasms to open up. I didn't put that, but ice freezes mist over the chasm, and that was my idea of like an alternative way that they might end up getting to the sword. Fire, red glow from the chasm wakes Hamira, which is our Drogon. our weird dragonkin thing that lives in here. And then wind fills the area with storms, changes the dungeon's tune, and slowly wakes Memnoth, which is our Lunalith boss over here. So there's actually another way that they can access this place. It's if they release the Lunalith from its lair, from its slumber. That's where I came up with the title Psalm of the Sleeper. This thing is under a magic spell and is being kept asleep for now. But there are several ways that could change and totally change the dungeon. Well, not totally, but expedite events, But yeah, you can see there was a lot of info here that I felt just needed to be either cut or was just extraneous detail that I didn't really need in order to run this thing. And I ended up just cutting it all down and making this nice little area that covers pretty large of a section here, actually. But yeah, like I said earlier, your mileage may vary with these sorts of things. This may not be ultimately enough information for some game masters out there, but I find that when I'm running this adventure at the table, really within the addition of the map and having some of the details kind of drawn out here, I can contain most of that in my mind. I can reference the things I'm not going to remember, and that's really what's important here. Especially, I'm not publishing this, and if I do, it may change yet again, but this is really just for me. This is all the information my brain needs in order to run this adventure smoothly and to keep my eyes and ears on the players so that I know they're having a good time, they're getting all the details they need in order to make decisions, and really just to keep the pace flowing without constantly having to look down and reference my notes and stuff like that. Hey, what's up, Better with Bacon? Right on time, late as usual. Well, glad to have you. The Forge reminds me of a fantastic video released by Aaron Voigt last week about the last 15 years of TTRPG history. That sounds cool. I'll have to check it out. I missed a few, so I'm going to scroll up. Let's see. Better POI than a POS, Thanks. Appreciate it. Hey, did you see the zombies idea also appeared in Delve? Oh, no, I didn't. What, is this the one that we were talking about with the troll? Is that what you mean? Where it had all the bugs coming out of it and stuff? Or is this oh, wait. I think you're talking about the zombies on Jotunheim, right? Or Jotunstein. I keep saying Jotunheim. Jotunstein. We had the cursed white trees, heavy mist, and howling voices, undead acid spitting giant Komodo dragons, guard ruined obelisks surrounding the cloud giant ghosts. I think that's what you're referring to. But that's cool. I haven't got my Delve book yet, but I'm excited to check it out. Always fun to cut down text and find the core ideas. Yeah, and someone said this earlier, but it leaves room for more creativity, I find. If you're not if you don't have everything written in stone, it's a lot easier to feel like you can take the core Play-Doh and sort of mold it into a new shape based on what's happening with the players, what they end up being interested in, what bits they bite onto. Because I find that in practice, if you put too many details, then you end up just throwing a lot of it out because either your players didn't go that way, they didn't bite onto that clue, things like that, or they got really interested in this thing versus something over here, and then you have to kind of make up that thing they bit more onto anyway. So I don't know. I just for creative reasons, I tend to avoid getting overly detailed. I'll put like I said, the right amount of detail, but just don't tie yourself down with paragraph after paragraph of extraneous detail, basically. Okay, when I tried to merge all the rolls you made into an ice troll with the undead beehive inside of it. Oh, that's awesome. That's in Delve? That's cool. I'll have to check it out. I think my book is literally in the mail, so I'm super stoked about that one. Creativity, another GM exclusive concern. Along with reading the rules, I ain't got time for that. I am, of course, kidding. Yeah. I know, another reason I wanted to start doing these live streams where we generate the ideas, because I think a lot of people hear tables and they're like, I don't do random tables. I don't want to roll something in the moment and then it's like, oh, there's orcs here in the middle of this field and now we have to figure out why they're here and blah, blah, blah. I use tables as idea generators. This entire dungeon, in fact, between you guys and the tables we rolled in like Knave 2E and, some of the Pirate Borg stuff for the islands, none of these ideas are really mine. I had a few things, like I came up with a plinth and stuff like that, but really, you can go back and watch those videos and most of them are happening in real time. I think tables shake us out of our standard ideas and responses, and help us. They sort of like force creativity and creative thought. Like you end up having to look at the table and thinking like, I think we rolled a what are they called, like a rust monster, and then I rolled a different element and ended up being glass. And so we took that concept and I said, this forge is actually I can't even think of the term, but like glass blowers, right? Like all their weapons are like black glass obsidian and stuff. And so this creature actually shatters glass with its breath weapon thing. So anyways, all that to say, it ended up generating an idea that was wholly unique to me and much more interesting than if I had just thrown your stock standard rust monster in here and your standard forge and things like that. And so there's a lot of glass and music and resonance and crystal themed things happening inside this dungeon, which is not the direction I originally intended for it to go, but was, just a happy little accident, as old Bob Ross might say. But yeah, it's been a really fun exercise, and I hope that people take these videos and apply it to their own games, and or maybe even use some more random tables and things in their prep to help inspire what happens in their games and at their table. But no, he just also had the zombies idea. Synchronicity. I had no hand in Delph. Okay, gotcha. I believe most people's gripes with random tables come from either not making them yourselves or not seeing that you can use them as tools in prep too instead of just at the table. Yeah, I agree. I think and not to pin the blame wholly on D&D 5e, but I think when a lot of the books started to come out with these random encounter tables, and a lot of the advice at that time, this was like probably, if I'm remembering right, early 2010s kind of era, a lot of people were going, random tables can be really fun. Just, throw a random table in the middle of a travel encounter and see what happens. And it's like, yeah, that you can do that, sure. And if you're like hex crawling, that's one thing. I do think you should generate some of your hex crawls in the moment. But if you're playing a game like 5e, like a heroic fantasy, and you're trying to weave these long narrative stories together, and then you throw in orcs and they TPK the party because you didn't balance the encounter or something, or like I say that because I don't know if I even believe in balancing encounters at this point, but it's just narratively unsatisfying to have your party suddenly die to some not thought out table, if that makes sense. So I feel like for a while there, I'm going on a soapbox rant a bit, but for a while there, tables were getting a bad rap because it was a mix match of expectation and design. I think they weren't designed properly for the expectation of the games they were implemented in. That's a personal take on it, and I feel like a lot of this came around the 5e era, but yeah, I digress. Like you stated, random tables are great to generate ideas and inspire you to create. Yeah, and I think they're perfect for just that. And in fact, like that's kind of been a large part of this journey with this. I'll probably cut off after this, but with this playlist in particular, I just wanted a more honest look at how we prep games. And I've been really personally leaning into randomization with my prep to create ideas, because I don't know about you guys, but after this is 2025? Yeah, about 10 years, 11 years of game mastering, you start to repeat ideas. Whether you intend to or not, they crop up from time to time, and you realize I'm doing my third, lich-based tomb in this campaign that I'm running. So hopefully that this is this whole whatever tirade I'm going on, it is in favor of the creativity that sparks from using tables, if that makes sense. But yeah, just to give you a preview, next time I do one of these live streams, I'm going to try to find my main notes I did on the live stream for these, and then we're going to kind of talk about breaking down some of the things and what ended up making it to the page. Either that, or I'll just do another island crawl live. Whatever you guys want. You can, if this is post live, you can post in the comments saying hey, do another island, I've really enjoyed those, or hey, I'd like to see how you broke down this island and ended up fitting on one page. But that's really mostly it for today. We've gone for about an hour now. Hopefully you've enjoyed this, or this has been helpful to digest some of the process for creating this dungeon. Thank you guys for joining me. As always, do the YouTube things. It really does help the channel. And I'm gonna, I guess I was gonna make some announcements about the new year. I said this at the beginning, but I'm potentially getting a new job, which could change my schedule of when these go live. So if you've enjoyed these live videos, look for them either on a Wednesday or Thursday evening, most likely, probably around 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll hammer out the details and let you guys know. These have been really fun for me. I don't know how, algorithmically, or whatever word you want to use, how much the community actually searches for stuff like this. But I find that it's an exercise that helps me think really hard about the process in which we actually use the information at the table. Because there's a lot of talk online about things like prep, and honestly, I just find that I don't bring a lot of those things to the table. They're great ideas, they're great ideals, but sometimes the lessons are lost. And I may have a video I make about that pretty soon, so we'll see. Anyways, I'm rambling. Happy New Year, everyone. Hopefully your 2026 is even better than your 2025. Hopefully you get to play lots of games and prep lots of fun, creative ideas to bring to your table. And yeah, that's it for today. Join the mailing list. Oh, I guess last sort of announcement thing is I'm going to try to take my game, 7 Delving Sins, to Kickstarter middle of the month-ish. I'm going to say around the 15th. So if you've been following along with that kind of stuff, hopefully the pre-launch, I should say. Hopefully the pre-launch goes live around January 15th, and then a month later the real Kickstarter goes live. So I'll put links when it does. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for your input. I'll say hi and bye real quick to Monomix. Thanks for being here, Peter. Thanks for your input. I saw that you sent me a message. I'll read it later. I don't think I was quite getting what you were putting down, but I'll check it out. And yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. That's it for today. I don't have anything else to say. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to shut the stream off. Appreciate you all, and we'll see you next time. Learn, adapt, grow. Brah.